Good morning, Coach.
Good
Now that
morning.
you've had some time to evaluate the USC defensive line and pads, I'm curious, what are some similarities you've seen between the D line at USC this year and the one at UCLA last season, and what are some differences?
Some similarities. We're going to have
We're
some
gonna have some
versatility up front as far as guys that could line
line
across the
across.
board, playing different spots. Differences, I would say, I think we have a little bit more depth here. I think we have, especially interior, we have more guys that we can play inside, which I think going into the Big Ten is going to be big. And then, outside of that, that's really the biggest thing. I would just say, the versatility, and then I think just the increased depth inside is going to help us a lot being in the Big Ten.
Ryan Young. Oh, Ryan, you're on mute.
There we go. Hey, Dan, we heard a lot of buzz for Anthony Lucas last year, and it didn't totally materialize in the season. We're hearing it again now. What's he showing you this preseason? And what have you gleaned maybe about his year last year and what buttons you had to press to get the most out of him?
We really didn't have to impress any buttons at all. When I got here, I think he was aware of, he has a lot of potential that he hasn't tapped into yet. So he's been locked in since I got here. He had a good spring, but he had a great summer. Like you can tell, he really put in a ton of work in June and July, because when we started camp, he didn't just pick up where he left off. Like he was ahead of where he ended in spring, and he's had a tremendous camp. He's playing the pass better, playing the run better, and again, he's a guy with his versatility we can do a bunch of different things with.
Thank you.
Ryan Karchi.
Hey, Dan, thanks for doing this.
No problem.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry. What is it about Kamari, just generally from a mental standpoint, that makes him an ideal fit for your scheme and for this defense? And given that he's already got a year in your system, how much do you, or have you found yourself relying on him to kind of play that role as a real leader on the field?
Well, I think there's a difference between being a smart person and being a smart football player. He happens to be both, but there's some people who just, no different than in school. Some people are better at math than they are English. Some people just get ball, and he's a guy who just understands ball. There's certain things that, we don't need to teach him, but he just naturally gets. And I think when the players have another guy like that in the room, it's one thing when they're hearing it from us, but when they can hear it from another player, sometimes that's even better.
Luca.
Hey, D'Anton, just curious, now that you've had fall camp to evaluate, and just a really crowded cornerback room, with a lot of transfers to Carlos, John Humphrey returning from injury, Greedy, and then just the returners, Jalen and Prophet and those guys, who's really kind of standing out to you as we head into the season here, and where are you finding guys best fit?
Well, all those guys that you just said, they're all going to play. They all had good springs. They've all had good camps, and a handful of those guys are guys who are going to play multiple spots. So sometimes they might be at corner, sometimes they might be at nickel, sometimes you might see them at safety at times, and then a couple of those guys you'll see it in corner only. But all those guys are going to play, and it's no different than up front. I think we need a rotation of DBs to be able to keep guys healthy, to be able to keep guys fresh, but also to be able to match up best versus who we're going against. Because in the Big Ten, sometimes week to week, team to team, how you defend them and the personnel you want to be in could be drastically different.
Nick.
Hey, Coach. Thank you for doing this. I wanted to ask you just specifically, what areas did you see over the course of the offseason where you felt the areas of defense had improved going into this season, especially going up against LSU?
I think, just communication, that's something that we harped on a lot when we got here. And again, like that's something that can always be better. But that's something that we felt like gotten better all throughout the spring. And the guys did a good job doing work with just themselves in June and July. So when we picked up on camp, I was surprised with how well they were communicating, just anticipating things, making sure everyone's on the exact same page. and then just the development and growth mentally and physically within the scheme, because it is a completely different scheme, different terminology, different techniques. And then within that scheme, some guys had to lose weight, some guys had to gain weight. And we feel like, everybody has met their individual needs.
Thanks, Coach Lynn.
Awesome. We have time for one more. We'll go with shotgun.
And sorry for the noise here, but with Anthony Lucas's versatility and his physical abilities, how important for the defense is it for him to take that next step and become a playmaker for you this year?
Oh, it's huge. He has a lot of ability. He can rush the passer. He can stop the run. You can move him inside. He's surprisingly athletic off the ball in space. He's a guy that can, you can really do just about everything with him. And the more he's able to do, the more that's going to unlock for other guys on the field. So, him taking that next step's huge, not just for the defensive line, but for the entire defense.